I'm ready.
Okay, we're back with Darren Hagen. I hear American Singing is the feature film. We just had a long conversation about audiobooks and books, but your book's out on audio, right? So let's pitch that. What's the book called?
It's called Do It With the Past. It was released as a written memoir about 5 years ago, and I just finished recording the audio version
Yourself.
at Bogliasco in Italy. Yes, myself, which sounds very fancy, but I had a residency and I finally bit the bullet and recorded it.
So that's Duet with the Past, the composer's memoir, and you wrote it and so how was doing the audio book? Okay, so your book is 17 hours. Wow. That's a long book. So that's a big
Big book.
book. So you did so how long did that take you to do the 17 hours of the audio?
I read it was 17 days.
Okay.
I
So an hour a day, basically.
Yeah, one day, one chapter a day,
Yeah.
and I believe it's 17 chapters long. So I just wanted so badly for it to be done that I scheduled that time, and it's very strange to have written the memoir because I moved on, obviously,
Yeah.
and then to have to go back and read things that I would rewrite now if I had a chance was very strange, which leads us directly into I Hear America Singing, which is about a composer who's rewritten a show that he finished many years earlier.
Yeah.
And his feelings about his past. I don't. I mean, it is part three. I'm just going to jump in. Part three of something called the Bardo Trilogy, and you've seen the first two films,
Yeah.
Orson Rehearsed and 910. And it is the most subversive of the three films because it works very hard to appear like a documentary about a rather laughable, self-involved Broadway composer. But in fact, what it is it's a dialogue about music and songs and how they reflect American culture. So each one of the songs utilizes either as a thematic basis or the chords or just the gestalt, a song from American history, whether it's a pop song from the 70s, quasi Burt Bacharach, or if it's a song like Joe Bauer's from the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Yeah, every one of
So
them
this is
counts.
your like of the other two films, this is your most structured film. Like it's the most like linear film, I guess I would describe
Oh
it.
yeah, as far as the narrative is concerned,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the most superficially accessible so that it can do the most shenanigans as far as what it has to say.
So I laughed a little bit when they on Film Freeway they have the genres.
Yes.
Because it is a musical, right? And it is a
Mhm.
documentary, but you also called it a metafiction and a meta-modernist. I've never heard those. Like I obviously I see a lot of films on Film Freeway in the genre section. Nobody's ever used those genres before. So what do you mean by a metafiction?
Well, it's very interesting because metafiction is when you take true events,
Yeah.
you meld them with made up events, but then you present it as a new fiction that reflects the realities of both the fantasy and the fiction, sort of like writing a memoir.
I was gonna, but you could argue that they've been doing that on reality TV like forever, right?
Exactly, exactly. But this owns up to it. This is very clearly the problem is that if you do it well enough, people think it's the truth.
Yeah.
And that as opposed to a mockumentary which takes an attitude toward its characters, a mighty wind or something like that, which is clearly a take on something. If you do this well enough that people start believing that it's a true story, then it's metafiction. And I wanted to, aside from scrolling around finding really cool terms on the internet, the fact of the matter is that I wanted to make sure that people didn't just say, "Oh well, this guy, Robbie Dorfler, is sort of ridiculous."
Yeah.
And what's this film about? Well, the film's actually about things that are not being talked about on the surface at all.
Gotcha. And what is that? What's the thematic? What are you trying to say in this film?
Oh, well, it is part of the Bardo Trilogy. So what it is about him coming to terms with his death and what he has not accomplished, what he has accomplished in his life. And because he thinks in terms of musical theater,
Yeah.
as opposed to Orson Welles, who thinks in his own, amazing psychological world, this man is a good deal easier and simpler. He thinks of his life as a show. And so as he goes back to encounter his life and come to terms with it, he does so in terms of a musical. So that's the story of it. It's about an artist's relationship to reality. He's being grilled by a documentarian who thinks he's rather ridiculous, and that documentarian is obviously Charon, the way that I've had Charon, the man who, the figure who takes people across the river Styx in the previous two films in different manifestations. In this manifestation, the fellow just can't understand what the point is. He thinks he's ridiculous. And who are these people he's working with? Are these transactional relationships? It's in coming to terms with, is this even happening? A sentence will be, a bit of line will start with him at the piano on stage in front of an audience, continue with him in his apartment alone at the piano, and then end as an answer to a question of him being a talking head on a park bench. So that's, what do they call it? They call it Fosseing. When you do
Oh my God. So this is what I have right now I'm watching your film. I have Bob Fosse, all that jazz.
Well, that's really
My
interesting.
network
You should
is
say
here. Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You pinpointed it because you know who actually coined that phrase, Fosseing?
Fosse? Who?
Not Fosse. It would be
Bob
like
Fosse?
Fosse. No, the composer of the score for that film, which is very interesting since I'm the composer of the score for this film. For the composer of that all that jazz to see that was the way that he was organizing fantasy, reality, and so forth.
Yeah.
Uh,
Because it's about all that jazz is about him like coming to terms with his death too, right? Like it's like
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that film. I mean,
And
I think that
he's a total like narcissist, but he's extremely talented and he's a sexist and like he's deeply flawed, right? Like
yes, and it's also very obviously autobiographical.
yeah.
Fosse was writing a film about himself, but he was also not. It's that fine line between autobiography and fictionalization of one's
Exactly.
own.
Yeah. So that's why when you're watching your film, it's like, yeah, this is yeah.
Yeah,
He's yeah. So basically, but it's, at the same time, that's like a Hollywood film, and it's very like they have the musical acts and they have lots of high production value, and so but it's the same thematic, right? It's very similar.
absolutely. It's the same. It's the same story. It's the same. The reason it's the same story is because I don't know a single creative artist who doesn't have to spend their lives coming to terms with how much of what they do is narcissism and how much is transforming one's personal experience into things that other people would care about. In fact, one of the interviewers says, why should I care about this? Obviously, you care about this, but why should I watch this film? And that Robbie Dorfler or whatever the character Roy Scheider plays is, whether it's Fosse or a fictionalization, they're asking the same questions, just in a very
Exactly.
different.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like there's like, but it's about like this, someone who's self-involved. Like it's a story that's been told before, like a self-involved artist who's very talented, and it's sort of like questioning, like you have to have that personality to produce the materials that you produce, I guess, right?
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting now that I haven't thought about this in years, but it's wonderful to see Fosse in the cutting room, cutting that actor doing the monologue
Yeah.
inside of the film,
So
all
it's a
that
film about
jazz.
it's that Lenny movie. He's like Dustin Hoffman about the stand-up Lenny Bruce, right?
Yeah.
So it's the film within the film. Like he's basically he doesn't want to finish the film, right? He doesn't want to end the film.
And who does? I mean, because if you end any project, then you have to move forward. So that's why with the third, this being the third of the Bardo films,
Yeah.
I wanted because this film let me all that jazz would be cut from the point of view of the choreographer
Okay.
who is the director. This film is cut from the point of view of the composer. So all of the dialogue and all of the songs are fitted together the way that Orson Rehearsed and 910 were, but it's done with far more distance from the material, so that the fantasy of it and the ability to be subversive is heightened. With Orson Rehearsed, you go in there and you see the film, and it's obviously an art object. It makes no sense. The narrative is convoluted. And with 910, they're singing all the time. All the rules of one set opera are being, adhered to. You know what you're dealing with. With this film, the idea was, oh, I've seen films like this before, Follies, or whatever. Yeah. I actually was thinking more Follies than all that jazz. But as soon as you can say that, our culture likes to say, "Oh, I know what this film is. I'm not interested. I saw it done better." But when you do something like this and you do it knowing what all of the reference points are, what are you saying about the document saying the thing? That's what I mean by the meta.
Yeah.
It's not done because I'm derivative or Robbie, the character, is derivative. Yeah. It's done because we're saying things about derivativity.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. But at the same time, people are watching the film, they have no context. They're thinking that, like, what are we watching? So Robert is it Frankenberry? Great name, by the way.
Yes.
Robert Frankenberry is playing Robbie. But if an audience has no context to the film, they're not reading credits or anything like that, they think that this is the real guy, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's the hope. Yeah. And the thing is I'm going to use a very exalted reference point because it's just my background as a composer. The composer Richard Strauss, who wrote Salome and Der Rosenkavalier and all of these marvelous operas, he in fact was a middlebrow artist. Yeah. Now, middlebrow is given a bad rap. Middlebrow simply means that if you really know the repertoire, if you know film in this case, then you get a lot of things. There are a lot of takeaways that you don't if you just come to it saying, I'm going to have a nice night in the theater. Then you have a perfectly good middlebrow artistic experience, an aesthetic experience, which is charming and entertaining. But then there's also somebody who's a complete neophyte, who sees something like this for the very first time, and they have takeaways too. And and so what I did, have taken it as my operatic paradigm for the last 40 years as a composer, is to write pieces that appeal to all three simultaneously, so that all three levels of viewer take something away. Yeah, but the more you know, the more you get.
Okay, the more you know, the more you get.
I guess that's the elevator answer.
Okay. And what do you mean by the elevator answer? I'm just curious.
Well, what is it? Remember they say, what is the elevator pitch for this movie?
Oh, gotcha. Right?
What can you tell me between the first floor and the third floor?
Gotcha. You got to tell the film it's about in one sentence. It's got to be about something in one sentence. That's what they say. Yeah. Right? Personal
reinvention and well, in this case, it's called I Hear America Singing because it's also a really deep. Well, in the film, one of the characters is making fun of him and says, "I call this Robbie's Guide to American Song, a lecture demonstration," and that it's also that. And also, there's a lot when you listen to the songs are saying things about Burt Bacharach. They're saying things about popular music of the 1880s, let's say, and about opera and about what's the difference between a song and an art song. But all of these things are talked about as context, contextually, not as, this isn't a talk show. This isn't the Dick Cavett show where we're talking about artsy fartsy stuff. These are characters who are on one level, they're avatars of a conversation that's been going on, particularly in American culture, because we're the inventors of musical theater.
Yeah.
We may have taken vaudeville and German theater and done our own thing with it, but still, Singspiel, when there's nothing like American musical theater on the planet.
That's what Americans are best at, is taking different things like baseball. They take different kinds of sports and they meld it into their own kind of
Beautiful,
concept. That's what a musical theater did, right?
beautiful. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's because it does that. You go to something like Sound of Music, which I see, which Robbie talks about in his final monologue, and it's simultaneously just so schlocky and horrible you want to slit your wrists, but at the same time it's also profoundly moving, incredibly well executed.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's not a place to slip a knife in the dramaturgy of that thing, and the songs, everything, the execution. Americans, we know how to build things, right?
Yeah. You do.
The more you know about the Sound of Music, the deeper it gets. And it's talking about Nazis and stuff, and really tough issues. And when it came out, remember, we weren't that far away from World War II.
No, no, not at all. Yeah.
You know, really tough stuff it's taking on.
And I just saw Wicked last night at the theater.
Ah,
The good,
yeah.
yeah. Like,
I love Wicked.
yeah. It was
You know,
good.
here I'll say something that will pique the curiosity of some of your listener watchers, and that is, look at Leonard Bernstein's great piece for the opening of the Kennedy Center, Mass.
Yeah. I thought
Some
it
of
was Trump
whom,
Center now. Go ahead. I'm just
yes,
kidding.
whatever, yeah, well, an artifact of our times, uh, and some of the words for that were written by Stephen Schwartz.
Yeah.
It's essentially Godspell,
Yeah.
written by Leonard Bernstein, as opposed to Stephen Schwartz's Godspell, which I think is a fantastic show.
Yeah.
So,
No, but just to go back to, like, because this is your legacy, this is your life. To go back to Wicked, this huge movie that's 80% is them singing, right? Like that, and then kids who are under 10 love this show and they sing the songs. So it's like bringing to the next generation, right? Like they're like this, they will never die, right? Like this kind of like the musical never dies.
it'll roll over your grandkids.
Yeah, no, it's like I
No,
know
absolutely.
it could be a little bit schlocky, but it's still grabbing the attention, right?
I think one of the other terms that
Yeah,
one of the other pretentious terms that I trotted out for my description of what the show is, after meta-modernism and meta whatever.
yeah,
There's a lot of meta going on here. I think one of the things that I resolutely adhere to in this film and in my own career is there's so-called high and low culture are irrelevant. Style is irrelevant. Every one of the songs in this show is in a different style.
yeah.
And that's why I have no problem whatsoever with Stephen Schwartz's musical style. I know a lot of the people I went to conservatory with at Juilliard and Curtis who have such contempt for the things. They even have contempt for Menotti's Amal and the Night Visitors.
It's snobbery, right?
It's this, yes, there's no room for snobbery
Yeah,
anymore. If you want to tell stories that land, you have to get over that stuff. And ironically, I was perceived, I still am, I suppose, as quite arrogant and entitled until the entire world changed around me.
yeah,
That entitlement and arrogance was the way that you had a so-called high culture career once upon a time.
yeah,
Now, my feeling is I'm still the artist I was at 20, and I still want to connect. And you can't have an attitude. I think Wicked is terrific. When I was a copyist on Broadway, I think I learned more about how to move an audience than I ever did at conservatory.
Well, but also it leads to like the pop kind of music, or like the mainstream music or mainstream movies lead to deeper. If someone likes that musical, it makes them dig, it forces them to dig deeper into other musicals, and that's their beginning, right? You can't
Absolutely.
start with something deep and profound when you're like 9 years old. You got to start in the Disney style, and then it gets you kind of interested in the other things, right?
West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. So That's it's like any sort of music, right? Like that's what grabs the kids. It's like that emotional intelligence that they're at. That's what they respond to, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. My boys love all sorts of different kinds of music,
yeah,
16 and 14 years old. And I think the point at which I cured my elder son of an addiction to classical music was when I made him play the saxophone. I didn't make him play, but boy, after a couple months on the saxophone, that was it. They both have, like most people, most teenagers, they have huge playlists,
yeah,
of all kinds of music. I think that that's fantastic.
yeah.
I wish I listened to what they listened to. And I think it was back in the 80s. I don't know if you remember this, but when Madonna released Like a Virgin, all of my colleagues and I, who were composers, we were freaking out because you could hear 24, 25 discrete tracks because
Yeah.
the technology had caught up
Yeah.
and you could hear all of this stuff and we're all going, oh my God, because that's when technology caught up with the idea of close listening on cans. And once you had earphones on, you could hear the incredible production values. And my children, for example, they just expect that. And
Gotcha.
they listen like with Kendrick Lamar. You hear the ambience, the room shape change as he moves style to style. So you hear the studio at Capitol Records in 1959 when he's like going into Sinatra zone. And then you hear a dry sort of a Nashville sound for another 30 seconds. And he moves not just the styles, but the technology, the recording technology and the shape. And my kids, no one taught them to listen like that,
Yeah.
but that's the way they listen. So a show like I Hear America Singing is almost for people 40 and up.
Yeah.
My sons listen to it and they say, Dad, that's so, lame.
But your son
Whereas they
plays,
love Orson,
but your son plays the sax?
not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Now he's a basketball player. But, but the other son's an actor and he was just in Our Town.
Yeah.
And, there's what is normal? Nothing is normal
Yeah.
anymore. Everything is extraordinary.
Oh. That's so you went from saxophone to basketball. It's like people say that basketball is like jazz, right? There's a lot of parallels to jazz and basketball.
I think that that's a profound insight. There
Yeah.
are, and yes, that's exactly how he looks at it. And he's surrounded by friends, just like jazz. You've got your team, and absolutely.
And things evolve, right? Where like back in the day, you have the inside game. Now it's a 3-point game. So people used to go to the basket. Now they go away from the basket. And jazz is the same way, right? Where like the music changes, evolves through time, right?
Well, if the okay, now you're getting me going here because
Yeah.
this is how I think.
Yeah.
Because the basket is the tune, and now we're far away from the tune. So,
Exactly. That's
and
exactly it, right?
I think that that's beautiful. I think that
Yeah.
that's incredibly well said,
Yeah.
and that's why, as far as the aesthetic of this particular film,
Yeah.
you can see they're all three are wildly different films. And I'm going to make a plug at the end, if you don't mind. I know we're running out of time,
No.
but that's why this show goes so far away from it. It conceals its dialectic so hard because I don't. It's already a little preachy, but I imagine how preachy it would be if I weren't covering all of that by being far away from the tune. In this case, the tune or the basket is the point.
Yeah.
And the point should creep up on you. Afterwards, you could go, why does that upset me? What's that about that particular film which it seems like I missed something, or I don't want to think about the fact that these melodies are this or that, or the lyrics and the way. Anyway, that's what I was trying to do, is disarm, make people who are really solid in their idea of what they think is good, make them uncomfortable, and take people who are really uncomfortable and give them some comfort.
Okay.
So, oh, okay. So the plug is this: there's actually a book coming out in April from McFarland Books called Exploring Opera Film, Making the Bardo Trilogy.
Yeah.
and the shooting script for all three films, including this film, and essays about them are in that book, and
Okay,
it's
so where
available for pre-order.
where does opera come go from here? Or is it a dying, is it gonna die out, or is it, where's like, you know what I mean? Like your kids are 14, you said 12 and 14. How do does that generation get into opera? I'm just curious.
I think they get into it by redefining it. I think the time of uh, exclusionary definition of what things are is over. Opera is just fine,
Okay.
but there are a whole bunch of different kinds of opera. Film is doing just fine. You just have to redefine what constitutes film. You have to let it change, right? And
Yeah.
you see so many films and so many different ways of engaging with film. From a composer's point of view, I love seeing that what constitutes opera profoundly changing. So I see no problem here. I see the problems are only in the outmoded gatekeepers, and that which is why I wrote the book, which absolutely makes no value judgments about what constitutes opera. In fact, the exploration is all how can we redefine? How can we expand?
Yeah.
How can I call I Hear America Singing an opera film and believe that that's true?
Yeah. So you're talking about it's from a distribution standpoint where like film is changing, right? So look at from the big picture. How people are consuming film is different, but there's certain things in life where like I think opera is going to stay the same, meaning that people are going to consume opera by going to the opera,
Not
right?
necessarily. I mean, I speak a lot of the one of the chapters is mainly about how opera has been escaping the opera house for the last 100 years.
Okay.
Yes, there's always going to be those folks who think of it as dressing up, having a good fancy dinner beforehand, getting a little
Yeah.
drunk, paying $250 for your seat, but that's also music theater. But bricks and mortar opera houses, they've been showing in theaters. Opera film begins as something that, yeah, you could do these shows in theaters. And of course, I always stage my films as theatrical pieces,
Yeah.
live theatrical pieces simultaneously, so that the actors, it's a production paradigm which saves money
Yeah.
basically. Uh, but uh, but they're created for film, but they're still opera. And one of the wonderful things about opera now is I saw a great production of La Boheme mainly in a bar down in the East Village.
Okay.
It's called Rent.
You saw Rent at a bar. Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was I was living down on St. Mark's Place back in the '80s when Rent was being written, and I remember them trying out scenes with a cassette recorder, boombox, and they were singing, and people were in the
Is
bar.
this story in one of your books? Because that's a great story.
Well, I think I mentioned in passing as having had someone, flirt with me at one of the bars.
Oh,
But
okay. So you got into a romance sexual kind of, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, but no, but that's amazing. So basically, but opera, like this is what you're doing with your films, right? You're basically like, especially 910. It's like you're taking the musical and you're putting it on film, right? But opera is like you need the aesthetics, right? You need the ambiance. You can't sing an opera at a bar, right?
You can. You absolutely can. It's just a lot more like shooting a Cassavetes film. For instance, 910, the cutting, the storyboarding, the fact that the camera was 2.5 feet away from the singers, they all sang live. Everybody in my films sings lives. They don't.
Yeah, we
They
talked
don't.
about this because you recorded everything on set, right? You didn't have them do,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Live performance is obviously crucial to the operatic experience. But when you take an opera singer and all sorts of different kinds of singers and you put them among the audience, it changes the shape of what constitutes opera. So the critical point here is that yes, we've been putting operas and musicals on film for a long time, but we've never started from the inside of the opera and worked out toward film.
Okay.
And it's a fundamentally different transaction. This show, for example, it's easiest to see the bases and the interrelationships in 910 because it's closest to a standard opera. With something like Orson, it's the furthest out. I mean, it doesn't make sense because there's absolutely no break in the fourth wall. You're on the stage, but you're in the audience. You're anywhere that, and that's what film does so beautifully. I Hear America Singing takes the conventions of a movie musical to undermine what constitutes a movie musical. Because the whole thing is happening from the point of view, it's all obviously in Robbie's mind.
Yeah. All right, so just to pitch the American Singing, so it's doing well on the festival circuit. You played at Montreal, in
Yeah,
Cannes, Los Angeles, Sweden, right? Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is great shows going on right now in Albuquerque. So you're
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, totally.
Paris, right? So it's universal. It's playing everywhere.
One of the things that I find so exciting, particularly for filmmakers, Manquet, is that if the film world, the independent film world, compared to the bricks and mortar opera world for concert music composers like me,
Yeah.
the films have been seen by so many more people than ever shall have seen them in opera houses because of the nature of streaming.
Yeah.
Like 910 is on Amazon Prime,
Yeah.
and well, so is Orson, and this will ultimately too. That is a profoundly moving access to willing, open, interested ears and eyes, and that's something that I think is the most ennobling, most inspiring thing that you could tell an opera composer and a filmmaker is that look at streaming has as I have nothing but love and admiration for somebody like Noah Baumbach, who's a friend, and because he's using
You
the
just did it. Okay, go ahead. You name
yeah,
dropped.
I mean, I love, yeah, there's a name drop there. Noah has managed to use the mechanisms
Yeah.
of a dying and transforming art form
Yeah.
and industry to create a new kind of film.
Yeah.
And I give him profound admiration, respect, and love for how he's doing that. I'm trying to do the same thing with opera.
Which is funny because he obviously is a big, it's like his wife did Barbie,
Yeah.
and like the movies that he made, if someone told me like watching his early movies, he'd be making Barbie, I'd be like, what? Like it doesn't make any sense, right?
Well,
But
the
yeah,
nice thing is, I mean, he was in on the script. He was
that's what I mean. He
co-screenwriter.
wrote the
Yeah,
script
yeah,
with his wife, right? Like, so,
yeah.
but it's a very mainstream kind of like music, yeah. But you know what I'm trying to say?
But it's doing. See, it's disarming. The whole idea about Barbie is it's a profoundly disarming film. But you already know that it was talking about much deeper things.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And that's the glory of it, and that's what makes Baumbach such a good and
I'm curious because all his movies hold up today, right? Like
Yep.
the movie with I just named Jeff Daniels and the Jesse Eisenberg, fantastic, kicking and screaming.
Even something like Mr. Jealousy, which is
Yeah,
right at the beginning, they all yeah, and they all hold up because he's so brilliant.
because there's
And
a human emotion there, right? I'm curious about Barbie if it's gonna hold up 20 years from now. I'm curious about it, like if that because it's about
yeah,
capitalism, it's about consumerism, right? So
that's an excellent question. I think that stylization. I think more and more because stylization is becoming understood as a manifestation of personal voice
yeah,
now, rather than as a marketing gimmick. I think yeah, I think it's going to hold up incredibly well. I have a protege out in LA right now who is a fashion designer composer who
okay,
is trying to create a music that, of course, fashion shows always have music, but he was working to score other people's fashion shows.
yeah,
But he now is bringing his own designs out, accompanied by his own music. So the music and he's like Givenchy, if with a dozen Audrey Hepburns,
yeah.
making his own operas out of the fashion shows. And he's at early stages, but what he's onto, the insight that he has, is that they belong together. And I think that when you talk about, yeah, stylization, telling a story, like, look at Barbie. Barbie is 8.5.
Okay, yeah. All
It's
right.
so fake, it's real. You know, we need Fellini's fakeness to buy in.
Gotcha.
If you don't do it comprehensively,
Yeah.
you don't. But Umbrellas of Cherbourg, for example,
Yeah.
the lip syncing is pretty good, but we buy into it because of those primary colors.
Yeah, yeah,
And
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
I get, yeah, 100%. Yeah, because it's fun to look at. It's just like really kind of cool to look at, right? So
yeah,
pretty people.
disarming. The
Yeah.
coolness is the disarming.
Exactly. Pretty people, right? Like you got the most beautiful, two of the most beautiful people in the world, and Ryan Gosling and right?
Yeah,
And what's her name? And and so like why did I just forget her name? Basically, but and so you got
because she's immersed in the character so well.
yeah, gotcha, yeah. But he's got the arc though. I argue in Barbie that he's got the arc. Is Ryan Gosling's character, right?
Yeah, well, you know,
Yeah.
but for us, he'd have to.
Yeah. I guess, but like you know what I'm trying to say. Like she's got a little like her arc is limited, but he's the guy who's like is being he's a slave, and then he becomes like he starts having thought. I guess, right?
Well, maybe men in general are beginning to have some thought rather than just being slaves.
Maybe that's what she's trying to say, right? I should rewatch the movie. I only saw it once, so
There are so many.
yeah,
I became a composer first and foremost in my 20s because you can say things with music that you can't say with text because you can be misunderstood. And look at the Sound of Music talks about Nazis. Uh, I Hear America Singing talks about what is ridiculous about MT people and people like me. I mean, I'm fairly ridiculous in my self-absorption, etc. Why make a film about it?
yeah,
And why make a film about making a film about it?
yeah,
It's the disarming thing that music has always been able to do, and now it's when you go into things like script and film and stuff like that.
mm,
How do you remain abstract enough that people don't just disassociate and don't just judge you and say, I'm not going to watch this film anymore?
yeah.
That's what Baumbach is a master at, and that's what people who slide in there and they say really unpopular or important things undercover.
Yeah. No, 100%. It's about all his films are about family too, right? So,
Yeah.
right.
Well,
Well,
and
It's Margot Robbie. I don't know how I forgot that name. And she basically made the movie happen. So I should give her tribute to Barbie, right? So,
it's extraordinary. And so I Hear America Singing is very
yeah.
light and it uses the conventions of independent film
Yeah.
and all of the things, you know, part of you feels
Mhm.
like it's a three camera 1950s production from, you know, Playhouse 90,
Yeah.
but part of you also, if you look at it closely, you realize that it's talking about what that was.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing it back. And I got to make sure that like Robert Frankenberry, the guy, he's fantastic in the film. That's not an easy role to play. He does a great job.
He he makes us buy in immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
100%.
you so much so that the fact that the other two characters quite possibly are figments of his imagination is more plausible
Gotcha.
because he's the one who it's hard not to like him, but it's also hard to understand why we should care.
Mhm.
And boy, that's a lot of lifting for that fella. Now, he was extraordinary. He
Yeah, he was
got a
great.
best actor thing from the pageant festival a couple weeks
Is
ago,
he playing the piano himself? Is he playing the piano? Okay.
and he was music director as well. So
Okay. Great.
he rehearsed the singers, and I couldn't possibly be music director and director at the same time.
All right, I
Not
gotta
this.
ask you one last question, and I'll let you go. What are you doing next? Because the trilogy's over, right?
Yes, the next film we're in pre-production with a screenplay co-written by Barbara Grecki, with whom I've written a number of things. It's called Hide, and I can tell you that it takes place in an editing bay,
Mhm.
entirely in an editing bay. A young man has been hired to recut the John Barrymore Jekyll and Hyde
Okay.
for a film festival. And he is simultaneously dealing with an oxycodone dependency.
Okay.
And as he goes into withdrawal, he begins to identify with Jekyll and Hyde. And so the film uses found the footage of Jekyll and Hyde, the Barrymore classic from the 20s, and and explores the area between cross-cutting between that and what's going on in the editing bay. I've already scored the entire film as a silent, so that acoustic score is in the can, and it lasts exactly the length of the film. So everything that happens in the editor's mind is electroacoustic. It's electronic music, and everything that happens in the film is acoustic instruments. So you
Okay.
have it's about the interrelationship between not fact and fantasy, but it's about what is the nature of reality, and who is a film more real than reality.
Okay. I can't wait to see it.
Oh, thanks for saying that.
All right.
Thank you for talking. This was
Thank
fun
you.
as always.
Fantastic. All right, man. Have a good one.
Adios, amigo.